One of the little things I love in The Lord of the Rings happens so fast and way at the end of the book that you're liable to miss it entirely. I know I did for years. But then, during one reread, it hit me. Let's set the scene. The Shire has been scoured, and the hobbits are doing their best to restore it to its former glory, thanks to, among other things, the gardening skills of Sam and the special gift of Lothlorien soil he was given by Galadriel. He's been traveling throughout the Shire doing what's called his forestry work. Bag End is among the places on the restoration list, and so Frodo has been staying with the Cottons until it's ready for him to move back into. Then, on March 13, Shire Reckoning 1420, the 1-year anniversary of his having been stung by Shelob, we read, Farmer Cotton found Frodo lying on his bed. He was clutching a white gem that hung on a chain about his neck, and he seemed half in a dream. "It is gone forever," he said, "and now all is dark and empty." But the fit passed, and when Sam got back on the 25th, Frodo had recovered and said nothing about himself. In the meanwhile, Bag End had been set in order, and Merry and Pippin came over from Crickhollow, bringing back all the old furniture and gear, so that the old hole soon looked very much as it always had done. When all was at last ready, Frodo said, "When are you going to move in and join me, Sam?" Sam looked a bit awkward. "There's no need to come yet if you don't want to," said Frodo. "But you know the Gaffer is close at hand, and he will be very well looked after by Widow Rumble." "It's not that, Mr. Frodo," said Sam, and he went very red. "Well, what is it?" "It's Rosie Cotton," said Sam. "It seems she didn't like my going abroad, poor lass. But as I hadn't spoken, she couldn't say so. And I didn't speak because I had a job to do first. But now I have spoken, and she said, 'Well, you've wasted a year, so why wait longer?'" The narrative goes on from there, but it's clear we've got a few things going on, even in this short stretch of text. Frodo is still suffering from his wounds received on the quest. Sam is traveling, trying to restore the Shire. Frodo is being moved back into Bag End. And Sam's relationship with Rosie Cotton is moving on to the next level. So it's quite easy to overlook this little thing I love. The fact that Frodo says that Sam's father, the Gaffer, will be very well looked after by Widow Rumble. Widow Rumble? Alas, we have nothing in the text beyond this mention. But clearly this widow, by the name of Rumble, has taken it upon herself, for reasons known only to her, and possibly the Gaffer, to look after Sam's father. And it would seem the Gaffer could do with some looking after. The family tree in the appendix tells us he was born in Shire Reckoning 1326, which means that by this point in the story, he's 94, which is fairly up there by Hobbit standards. For comparison, Otho Sackville Baggins died at the ripe but disappointed age of 102. When Lobelia Sackville Baggins dies, it's noted she was, after all, more than 100 years old. So it's seemingly no surprise her passing away then, specifically at 102. And of course, Bilbo's 11one is considered a very respectable age. So 94 is definitely up there. Gaffer, by the way, is a British term for old or elderly man. So he has always been set up as an older fellow. And he's never been doing terribly well, as far as the text goes. As Bilbo's 11st birthday approaches, which was in Shire Reckoning 1401, the Gaffer is 75, and retired from his job as gardener at Bag End. We learn that he is getting old and stiff in the joints. 17 years later, Shire Reckoning 1418, the Gaffer is 92, and Sam tells us, the Gaffer is getting old, and more than a bit blind. Later, when Sam finally returns, a year and a month later, we learn the Gaffer did not look much older, but he was a little deafer. No matter his age, though, the Gaffer seems to have always been a hobbit to speak his mind, and to not care what others thought of him when doing so. He gives as good as he gets in the ivy bush at the beginning of the book, with all the local hobbits wanting to know what was going on up at Bag End, and doubting what the Gaffer has to say about it. "You shouldn't listen to all you hear," he says to Sandyman the Miller, who persists in talking about all the queer goings-on up at Bag End. The Gaffer does not fall for that, though. "And you can say what you like about what you know no more of than boating, Mr. Sandyman. If that's being queer, then we could do with a bit more queerness in these parts. They do things proper at Bag End." Let it be known, queer in Lord of the Rings is the original usage of the word, meaning weird or strange. As for speaking his mind, the Gaffer certainly knows how to teach a lesson, with many a good adage at his fingertips. "It's the job as never gets started as takes the longest to finish," is one of his expressions, Sam tells us. As is, "It's an ill wind as blows nobody no good." "All's well as ends better." "Live and learn." All of those are none the worse for having been used before, as Bilbo might say. And he certainly would have, since Bilbo did seem to like the old Gaffer, who Bilbo treated especially well when giving out gifts on his birthday. The Gaffer got 2 sacks of potatoes, a new spade, a woolen waistcoat, and a bottle of ointment for, you guessed it, creaking joints. As for fathering, the Gaffer certainly did his best. He has 6 children, and as proof they didn't just appear out of nowhere, the Gamgee family tree in the appendices shows him to have had a wife, Belle Goodchild. We know nothing of her, but can guess her name is possibly a shortened version of Belladonna, which we know is a Hobbit name thanks to Bilbo's mother, the fabulous Belladonna Took. Fabulous, at least as far as the first edition of The Hobbit reads. In later editions, she's only famous. Curious that Mrs. Gamgee is named just Belle, since later we have the Gaffer's advice on names when Sam is about to have his first child. Make it short, and then you won't have to cut it short before you can use it. If he had been married to a Belladonna, who cut her name short to Belle, well, he must have had first-hand knowledge of nominal truncation. Curious, too, that Sam never mentions his mother, ever. It's always the Gaffer. Sam is 3 when his youngest sister Marigold is born in Shire Reckoning 1383. His mother was clearly alive then, but presumably not much longer? Perhaps she died in childbirth? Maybe Sam never knew his mother, or at least has only the dimmest memories of her. Presumably then, he would have been raised by his various siblings. Hamson, 15 years older than Sam, Halfred, 11 years older, Daisy, 8 years older, and May, 4 years older. And of course by his father, the Gaffer, he of the many adages, as well as a few chidings. "You're not but a ninny-hammer," we learn that he tells Sam often enough. The Gaffer also appears to have been something of a linguist, as according to Sam, ninny-hammer is a word of his. Well, maybe Sam means that his father just said it a lot, but I like to think the Gaffer invented it. Even more impressive, though, is how the Gaffer handles the Black Rider, who has come into Hobbiton, looking for Baggins, just as Frodo is leaving. Frodo manages to overhear the conversation, which is strange and unpleasant from the man asking the Gaffer questions, while the Gaffer's answers were rather shrill. Again, giving as good as he gets. Admittedly, the Nazgul at this point are not quite what they will be once the War of the Ring really begins, and Farmer Maggot does as well as the Gaffer later on when he meets a Ringwraith. But Maggot is bang up against the old forest, and so he's used to outlandish folk. Hobbiton is a bit more secluded, and so it's a more impressive show for a little old hobbit like the Gaffer to talk back to a Ringwraith. Of course, his natural curmudgeonly nature seems to have sharpened over time, and he's become a bit of a miserable old man in his dotage. Admittedly, he has reasons. He lives next to the Sackville Bagginses, after all. When Gandalf meets up with him after the wizard's escape from Orthanc, Gandalf says, "I had words with old Gamgee. Many words, and few to the point. He had much to say about the shortcomings of the new owners of Bag End. 'I can't abide changes,' said he. 'Not at my time of life. Least of all changes for the worst.' Changes for the worst. he repeated many times. Once Frodo and the others have returned, the Gaffer is still not happy about the situation. He even steps above his station a little by giving Frodo a bit of what for. "Good evening, Mr. Baggins," the Gaffer begins. The deference of one class to the other is there, as Hobbit culture would have it, the Gaffer being, we are told, one of the poorer hobbits of Bagshot Row, and of course a laborer, being a mere gardener. He says Mr. to Frodo, as he should, given that Frodo is a gentle hobbit to him. Sam likewise refers almost always to his master as Mr. Frodo. But that out of the way, the Gaffer gets right to the point. "Glad I am indeed to see you safe back, but I've a bone to pick with you, in a manner of speaking, if I may make so bold. You didn't never ought to a soul bag in, as I always said. That's what started all the mischief. And while you been traipsing in foreign parts, chasing black men up mountains from what my Sam says, though what for he don't make clear, they've been and dug up Bagshot Row and ruined my taters." It's fun to think that those taters might be the distant ancestors of those potatoes that Bilbo had given him 18 years earlier, which he surely planted with that spade that Bilbo had also given him. The Gaffer is a hobbit who surely loves his potatoes, but the idea that they might have come from Bilbo makes them, dare I say it, all the more precious to him? Well, anyway, Frodo apologizes and vows to make things right. And they do. And we then get that moment we started with, after the scouring of the Shire, when Frodo names Widow Rumble as effectively the Gaffer's caretaker now. Again, we have nothing about her, but we can make some assumptions about when she came into the Gaffer's life. Sam's vision in the Mirror of Galadriel seems to have been a true one of the things that were going on in the Shire. Trees felled, ugly buildings and such. And the final image he sees, there's the poor old Gaffer going down the hill with his bits of things on a barrow. That would seem to be true too. The Gaffer is alone in this, it would appear. Which begs the question, not where is Widow Rumble, but why is he alone? Who has been taking care of the Gaffer at this time of his life? Before September 23rd, Shire Reckoning 1418, it surely would have been Sam, since they are noted as living together in 3 Bagshot Row. Also, as noted, the mother does not appear to have been a presence in Sam's life, and so she would not have been there for the Gaffer once Sam had left. Of his siblings, we see Marigold has married, and Hampson and Halfred have moved away. So, Daisy and May, unmentioned anywhere else in the text but the family tree, could be home taking care of their father. Surely they would have been mentioned if they were around, though. Odds are that they're married too. The family tree only allows for so much connection, given the space available, and Marigold marrying Tom Cotton is more important since it connects the Gamgees and the Cottons a second time, the first being Sam and Rosie. Daisy and May's possible husbands, therefore, just wouldn't fit on the page. So, if the sons are not around, and the daughters aren't either, presumably the Gaffer has been going it alone for the last 13 months or so. Given his personality, and anyone with an aged parent knows what I'm talking about, he probably does not want to leave his hole to go live with a member of his family, or have any of them live with him to take care of him. He undoubtedly doesn't think he needs looking after. Possibly Daisy and May come by on a regular basis to check in on him at least. If they hadn't moved away, that is, I could see it. Surely his neighbors, the Sackville Bagginses, wouldn't have bothered. Lobelia already sniffed at the idea of the Gaffer having the other key to Bag End. Either way, though, when the time comes for the Gaffer to leave his hole, it makes sense he would be alone. We do at least learn where he's been since getting ousted. Farmer Cotton says, "He's in one of them new houses that the chief's men used to build while they still did any work other than burning and thieving. But he comes around to me when he gets a chance, and I see he's better fed than some of the poor bodies." Again, no reference to any of the Gamgee children, or Widow Rumble. Which brings us once again back to her. So, somewhere between the Battle of Bywater on November 3rd, 1419, and Frodo's move back into Bag End around March 25th, 1420, the widow has appeared, and is a presence enough that Frodo feels assured the Gaffer will be very well looked after by Widow Rumble. Again, no notion of why she does this. Is it out of the goodness of her heart? A sense of helping out a fellow hobbit in need? Perhaps someone she met in those new houses that the chief's men used to build? Because that's where she ended up too? Is it a desire to fill up a void in her life, now being a widow, by helping out this widower? Or is it something vaguely romantic, with her and the Gaffer having had a connection all those years ago, and now, with both of them free, they can finally be together? Who can say? But the Gaffer appears to be willing at last to accept the care he is very much in need of. Again, referring to the family tree, we see the Gaffer passes away in Shire Reckoning 1428 at 102, a ripe age, as we were told before. We can only hope he was not disappointed. And so that's why the Widow Rumble is one of the little things I love in The Lord of the Rings. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.